Hey, Trailblazers. There's always been one stop between Houston and the Guadalupe Mountains that has mattered to me the most, and that's my stop at Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn, Texas. Over the years, I've told our hiking community about this little gym out in West Texas and to swing by when they're heading to the Guads for a wonderful meal. For me, it was always a joy to stop by and hear Mr. Espinosa saying, "Another one of your hikers stopped by for a meal." They had to close the restaurant down for a couple of years due to family needs, but there's some exciting news. Mom's Kitchen Express is open once again. Same wonderful recipes, and it still feels like home. And it still carries the legacy of the man who loved this land as much as we do. So if you're heading out to the Guadalupe Mountains or just passing through Van Horn, make sure you stop by for a meal and to tell them hi from the Trailblazing Texas podcast community. Mr. Espinosa, you were missed. Now on with the episode. Welcome to the Trailblazing Texas podcast, where we embark on a journey through our diverse Texas landscapes and breathtaking trails while always engaging with our amazing Texas hiking community. So settle in, tighten up those bootlaces, and get ready for the thrilling tales awaiting for you on this episode. Talking about some more history, talk about the Butterfield stagecoach. Like the Pinery, what all was that about?
What is that? Yeah. So the Butterfield, it was an overland mail route stagecoach line, and it is one of the most important transportation pieces in American history. It preceded the Pony Express, because I think that's usually where our brains go to when we think about like mail moving west on horses. It preceded them, and it was the first reliable transportation route and communication system that connected this country. So it began in St. Louis, and it moved mail and people over 2,800 miles total to San Francisco in 25 days. So that was the selling point of the Butterfield. It was all about speed. And before the Butterfield, how we were getting mail east to west was through ships going to the tip of South America and all the way around. So the Butterfield truly connected both ends of the continent. And I think it's really cool to be able to do that nature trail behind the visitor center. It's ADA accessible. It's dog friendly. Bring the family, bring the pooch, go out there.
Bring the grandparents.
Bring everybody. And how I get visitors to do it is I tell them there's a surprise at the end of the trail. And yeah, when you get there, you see kind of this little rock wall and these little ruins. And it was the remnants of kind of the fort, in a way to best describe it, that used to be there. So that's where the carriages would stop and change out horses and stagecoaches and grab more, supplies and move forward. And the reason that this was such a popular stop was that there was water here, which is a big, big deal in the desert. And the Pinery was also significant because it's absolutely halfway in between the St. Louis stop and the San Francisco stop. So the riders on the Butterfield were so excited to see El Capitan because they knew they were halfway there. The station that existed at the Pinery didn't last too long. It lasted about 11 months. But the Butterfield line ran for about 2.5 years, but really significant because it connected the continent together. And I always think about the mountains and, anthropomorphizing them like, what have the mountains seen, right? They've seen the stagecoaches move. Before that, they saw the Apache. And now the mountains watch the highway and the cars. And not too far from us south is space exploration, or the rocket ships going up out of Blue Origin. So I'm like, man, if these mountains could talk, they have seen it all. But yes, the Pinery is a really cool thing and really important because mail's a big deal for all of us. So just another piece of the puzzle why Guadalupe is so awesome.
So can you tell us a little bit about the significance of the salt flats to the region in history?
Yeah, so about a 20-minute drive from the park is this landscape of barren beauty, and it is white as far as the eye can see, and it's salt. And that was all just left over from when it was a basin called a graben. And when it evaporated, the salt deposits were left behind, and it became a very, very precious resource for the people of the area and El Paso as well. So salt has been used historically by humans for thousands of years, going back to the Apache and Tigua tribes. They used it for tanning, for animal hides, preservatives, and even condiments on our food. We use that today. And around the 1850s, the local people, who at that time were Mexican and Americans, they were living off of farming and livestock grazing, and they would endure relentless heat and horrible attacks to travel 70 miles to go collect this salt. It was a very important trade item, and it was used at that time a lot for smelting silver. Before 1848, the salt basin was a public resource, and it was communal, common land for the public to go and use it as they may. And then the claims came, and the claims were put on the land, and it erupted a very small but dramatic soap opera type of wars that were going on out there. And it's so interesting. And there's this really cool book that you can buy in our gift shop called The Salt Wars, talking about it. But it ended up becoming these two groups that were fighting over the salt. It was the salt ring and the anti-salt ring. And I'm not kidding, lawyers, judges, senators, and even priests were engaged in skirmishes and shootings, standoffs, and even kidnappings over this salt. And it almost led to a larger confrontation between the two countries of Mexico and America. And it's an interesting discussion that we're having again about how this communal land that was used for public good is now being claimed and privatized and taken away from the people. And I found this really cool blurb that the Park Service had written, and I like to read it because it really sums up Salt Basin. And it says, for the Hispanic people of the El Paso Valley region, the Salt War was a struggle against the Anglo attempts to exploit the natural resources believed by the Mexican culture to be on communal land, because it was. The transformation of the salt beds from communal to private ownership threatened the very survival of the Mexican border population. They had constructed the road to Salt Flat and therefore had a vested interest in the future of the salt beds. The El Paso Salt War was not merely a quarrel over the control of the salt beds, but rather a struggle for the economic and political future of the area. And I think that is a really important piece of time, another really important piece of Guadalupe history that opens it up to a broader discussion about our public lands, whether, they should be kept in public hands or privatized and used for those purposes. So a very small, dramatic history with all the kidnappings and stuff, but kind of touches on a larger discussion that we're having again about what do we do with these public lands for public good. So yeah, really dramatic history.
I tell you what, there ain't no way I'm going to let the Guads be privatized.
No way. That's for all of us.
Yep, absolutely. So I love this question, and it'd be interesting to see your answer. So is there a story tied to any structure or place in the park that you think people, like just normally wouldn't hear about going to the park that you think that they should know about?
Can I talk about Point?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. The story that brought me here, the story that brought me and Jason together as friends. I can't think of any other story to talk about with this question, but Guadalupe Peak was home to one of the most important events that led to the creation of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, when 3 men summited Guadalupe Peak in wheelchairs. And beyond that being such a physical and emotional feat, it really kind of touched upon the rights of humans and the equality that the parks naturally provide to people. After they got off the mountain, the president of the United States called these 3 wheelchair climbers and thanked them for what they did for our nation and really proving that the outdoors are for everybody. And I try to tell every single person that talked to me that has done Guadalupe Peak, I have to show them that picture. I have it in a secret drawer in the desk. And I'm like, oh, did you do Guadalupe Peak? Boop. And I whip out the photo of the 3 guys doing it in wheelchairs. And it empowers those hikers and it empowers them to share that story with others. And I really would like to do an episode with you about the point climb, about the guys who did the peak in wheelchairs. I think that deserves its own section, but I can't.
Let me know when you're available.
Yes. We can't talk about Guadalupe Peak without that tremendous climb. And every time I do it, I think about how did they do this without using their legs? So that monument at the top is a very rewarding visual for people who've done that grueling hike to get up there, but it's actually a really significant place for the civil rights and the equality that all Americans deserve. And truly, the outdoors are for everybody. And no story encompasses that better than the point climb, but I could go on.
If you would love to come on the podcast and talk just an episode on point,
yes,
girl, just tell me when. And, it's funny, like leading up. So there's a couple of things that came out of that. Yes, I knew you before and, we would come in, hey, but, it was just like you kind of, I see you every time or you see me a couple times a year. And when you said, hey, do you want to, listen to the point presentation, I'm like, yeah. And I started thinking like, I never take part in any state park or any park, any of the stuff that they have going on. And so you start in this presentation and immediately there's a connection. I'm like, she loves this park as much as I do, and I'm like, I never thought that somebody existed. And then I'm crying and you're like, there's no crying in Guads. I'm tearing up and I'm thinking, what the heck? And then, you're tearing up some. Henning won't admit it. He tears up on the inside. Sam's tearing up. And outside of absolutely, like there was a bond that grew that day between us about the love of this park. I promised myself that I would never, ever walk into a state park, a nature center, a whatever, and not take 2 seconds and see what the rangers or whatever are putting on, because outside of you guys devoting so much time in the research and the passion that you have for this information, outside of all that, like you learn so much and you will embarrass yourself by crying in front of people. It's and to that, I've been to, every state park. Like we were at Mustang Island and I was throwing spears at some animal way out there. And I learned that if I see an arrowhead, don't pick it up. I learned that and because I would have picked it up. Yeah. So yeah, that point, man, I'll let you talk till you're blue in the face about that program. It's our point. Let's do it.
Yes.
To the listeners, it's worth it. You will be tearing up. I'm going to be tearing. Everybody's tearing up. The listeners will be tearing up. So let's do it. Just let me know. It's
weird if you don't tear up.
Yeah, then I don't even want you listening if you don't tear up.
Yes, they deserve their own time. We love those guys.
Yep. I looked up the gentleman, the ranger. Was it John?
John Jarvis? John?
And I'm like, I want to have him on the podcast to talk about point two, a long time ago. And I'm like, oh, wait, he's the director, or he was the director of the National Park Service. He's doing professional speaking engagements. I'm like, no, I ain't going to bother him.
You could always ask. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe one day.
Be cool.
Yeah. All right. So, what is the story about the William Creek Ranch House? And I know to the listeners, if you're not a Guad lover, you're like, ranch house? What?
Mm.
I thought it was only Freeholey Ranch. Nope, there's another
Yeah.
ranch house. So, tell us about that one.
Yes. We love Williams Ranch. So the story of Williams Ranch takes place in one of the most dramatic and extravagant views in the whole park, which is the west side. We call it the Western Escarpment. Here we go. Yeah!
To the listeners, it's my tattoo.
Yes, at the base of Jason's tattoo, the beginning
Yep.
of Williams Ranch begins. The house itself is electric blue. And it stands out when you're riding up to it. It stands out, but it's electric blue, and it sits at the base at one of those canyons. It's called Bone Canyon, and it was built in 1908 by Henry and Rena Bletcher. And legend says that Henry's brother once lived there, and he moved his wife out there. And his wife took one look at this place and said, nope. I don't even think she lasted 24 hours before they left. So that's our funny story, and really kind of touches on the point that it takes a really, really special person to live in the desert, to visit the desert, and to appreciate its beauty. You cannot be a weenie in the Guadalupes. But Henry and his family lived there for about a decade, and they ran a really substantial ranching operation, which always blows my mind out here. They had 3,000 longhorn cattle out at Williams Ranch. So imagine, your times out there seeing 3,000 herd of cattle, which is cool because that's the state large mammal of Texas. And around 1917, Mr. Williams, so the name of the ranch, Mr. Williams acquired that house and ran that ranch up until about 1941. We call him Uncle Dolph. And then after Mr. Dolph had it, the really famous Hunter family added Williams Ranch to their large tract of land, their big holding of the Guadalupe Mountains, and then they generously donated that to the National Park Service in 1966. So we've had Williams Ranch in the park boundary since the 60s. Nothing beats the view from the porch of Williams Ranch. It's changed really dramatically over the years, just the human history out there. But kind of sitting on that ranch kind of puts you in a time machine and takes you back to those simpler times of that bittersweet yearning for exploration and kind of that simplistic beauty that doesn't really exist anymore, just that simpler time. So I love Williams Ranch, and a quick update on what's going on now with it for the Park Service. So we had a very insane monsoon season, the summer of 2021. It rained like 40 days straight. It was a little like, what's going on? But it really, really tore up that road to where it became impassable. And just with a lot of the funding and the maintenance and all the red tape that goes through it, we are working on reopening it to the public. Hopefully it's soon. Stay tuned. We'll update it out on our website and social media when we open it. But when we do, you'll be able to come to the visitor center, say hi to me, check out a key, and then you could take your Jeep or your Bronco and four-wheel out there and get to the ranch. But right now it is only accessible through hiking on the El Capitan Trail, which is a little strenuous and hard to find right now. So right now you really have to work for it, but hopefully in the future, near future, we'll have it open. You can check out a key and drive up to it. But yeah, that little blue house has got a lot of cool history, and it all comes together when you sit on that porch and look up at the canyons.
To the listeners, if you ever want to experience a trail that broke your host and made him walk the 10 miles to a highway and hitchhike, go do the El Capitan Trail to Shumard. It's a tough hike.
Yeah.
I would argue it's probably the toughest hike that I've done. The quad has to be tougher, but I mean,
Mhm.
just what
Mm.
I remember, El Cap just killed me. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe because we were racing against time to get down to set up camp and stuff, but
Mhm.
yeah, the William Creek Ranch House, and I've said this a million times, as soon as I become rich, I'm funding a full restoration of that bad boy. And a question, let's say you open it up and someone checks, gets the key and can drive to the parking lot. Does that mean that then they can then camp at Shoemart? Or is that only going to be accessible to El Cap, do you think?
I believe, I don't know how management will decide, but I believe the parking and driving on the Williams Road will be a day use only.
Okay. Okay.
But you can get dropped off there or picked
Yep.
up
Yep.
there or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, you can backpack out from there, but the car will have to be removed or just have another driver. But yes.
All right. Cool. So if someone wanted to explore kind of what we've been talking about, the history of the park in one day, what route would you have them go?
Yeah. So either one of two options based off of your energy and your abilities. But the
Mhm.
first one would definitely be, we talked about it earlier, Freeholey Ranch, with the museum that's open, talking about the human history. So you really get, it clicks for you there why they made that settlement in that spot. It was just the perfect place where all the springs are popping up. So you get a little bit of history there, and then you could do Smith Springs, get a little bit out on trail. So that really touches mostly upon the ranching side of Guadalupe Mountains, which used to be Guadalupe Mountains Ranch. And then the second area I would say would be McKittrick Canyon. The exhibits there at the contact station are incredible. And the movie that plays there, it's quite short, quite small screen, but the narrator of that movie is the man himself, Wallace Pratt, the man that made us a national park, the man who fell in love with McKittrick, donated it to the Park Service for you to see, for me to see, for the world to see. And he narrates that little video there, and hearing his voice and the way he talks about the canyon is the same passion and joy and love that I hear in your voice, Jason, and I hear in others. So that's really cool. Hearing the kind of founding father of Guadalupe talk to you about how special McKittrick is, and then heading out on the trail to see where he built his first house out here. So yeah, Freeholey and McKittrick, and that's for all skills and abilities. To make it all the puzzle pieces come together with the beautiful, rich history that we have.
And kind of the last question about the history and the cultural significance of the park. What about like historical artifacts, grave sites, uncovered in the park?
Yes, we have had a lot of that stuff specifically in the caves as well. There are
Mm,
places of rock art and pictographs and petroglyphs in the park. A lot of that information is not public. I don't even know where some of that stuff is. But yes, we've had a very rich archaeological history. But I did want to kick this question to you because you are the resident expert of one of our really famous local grave sites. So I really want to hear from you because you're super smart.
absolutely. So, to give the listener some backstory, I talk about Jose all the time. I go visit Jose every trip. Henning gets mad at me. He doesn't want to go, so he stops in parks, stays in the car. I run down, visit Jose, pick up trash if people throw from the highway.
Thank you.
But kind of like how it kicked off for me is I would go to Van Horn, Mom's Kitchen, and to eat. And this is so Mom's Kitchen before it closed was like a little bitty restaurant house, maybe 6 tables. The grandmother was the cook and the grandfather was the busboy and stuff. And me and Mr. Espinosa would sit and talk about the history of Van Horn because he used to be the justice of the peace, I believe, in the 70s. And he would always talk about this. Hey, there was this grave we used to go visit, and it's right off the highway. And So it took me not like, I would research it every once in a while when I would come back home, but it took me 2 to 3 years to find it. I would research a little bit and then not, then research a little bit and not, and then go out and try to find it and not be in the right place. And, he would always say, yeah, it's out there. And so I figured that the grave marker, because this is back from the 1855, had
Mm,
fallen over or somebody took it or something.
mm,
And I found it. I was with Kip,
mm,
who was in one of the earlier podcasts in a group. We went out there. We all walked past it. I was
mm.
so mad because I wanted to find it so bad to tell Mr. Espinosa that I found it. I climbed up the rocks to the highway and walked back to the car. And then, there's no cell service out there. And I get a text from Kip saying we found it. So I come running down the old highway. I jump off that bridge and instead of walking the dry creek area back to it, I just ran over that hill. Man, I had cactus stuck in my legs, and yet we found it. So,
Oh my gosh.
so since then, I've been going to visit. I was able to tell Mr. Espinosa before he passed away
Aw, yeah.
that I found it. But like we would sit there and talk about Jose and all the history in that area. And what was funny is like other people's orders would be ready, and Miss Espinosa would be hitting the little bell for him to come pick up the food, and we would be talking, and he would get in trouble because we're talking about stuff instead of him delivering the food. But he got kind of sick. They had to close the restaurant, and then he passed away shortly after. And
Mm.
what's weird is two things. So his grandson messaged me on Facebook when they decided to close the restaurant, and I didn't know who the grandson was. And usually if I get a weird message, I just delete it or block.
Mm.
And I read it, and the grandson said, "Hey, I'm Mr. and Mrs. Espinosa's grandson, and I wanted to let you know that had decided to close the restaurant down."
Oh, wow.
And one of the first things that the grandmother said was, "How are we going to let that hiker from Houston know?" Because I would always talk and say, "Go to Mom's Kitchen." So hikers that were going to the Guads would stop at Mom's Kitchen. And so that meant a lot to me. And then he messaged me. It's weird because I guess it's a little bit better, but this was a couple of years ago. I was driving back from the Guads to Van Horn, and I got a message out in the middle of that 60
Wow.
miles, and it was from their grandson saying that Mr. Espinosa just passed away.
Mm.
And like, what are the odds that I'm going to be out
Yeah.
there when it happens?
Wow.
Anyway, there is some good news. They reopened the restaurant. It's called Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn.
Mm.
It's 60 miles from the park. And usually if I'm camping in Pine Springs, you go drive the 2 hour, hour there, hour back to go eat and visit. So I was there in the last visit to the Guads. We went by the restaurant, we ate. I got a picture with Miss Espinosa's daughter and her
Oh,
son-in-law who now run the business, Miss Espinosa, and then in the middle of us is Mr. Espinosa picture.
oh,
Mm,
Jason. That's
yeah.
beautiful. I love that. And yeah.
To get back to Jose, so he was a scout for the Buffalo Soldiers, scouting against the Mescalero Apaches. And so the story that I originally heard about his death wasn't completely true.
Mm,
I think the kind of what most people know about him. But I don't know how it happened, but I was researching his death
mm,
or just Jose, and I stumbled across a letter that James Longstreet, who was a Confederate colonel or general during the Civil War, then he came and he was in charge of that area, the Buffalo Soldiers and stuff. Well, he wrote a letter to his commander in New Mexico about how Jose died. And so I had this letter, so I think I kind of know how he died. So his grave is just right off the highway. It's not in the park. I think it might be on a little bit of private land, or you got to go through private land to get there. But yeah, so he was reprimanded by I don't think it was Colonel Longstreet, but he was reprimanded. He got in trouble for leaving his party while they were out scouting. This is, February 1855. The next day he was missing.
Mm.
So they don't know if he was mad,
Mm.
pouty, and just left his job, like said, I'm not going to be with you anymore because he got
Mm.
reprimanded, or he was out scouting. They don't know. And there was a group of Buffalo soldiers coming to the camp, and they stumbled across his
Mm.
body. In the letter, it says that he was killed by the mountain. So the only mountain in that area is El Cap. So I would assume that that's where he was killed, at El Cap, and where his grave um, is where just they buried him. He wasn't killed there. That's where they were camping at. And so they buried him. And of course, they couldn't keep up with the Apaches. They riding horse and stuff, that was another class, another level.
Mhm.
And they had to abandon the camp to try to get to water. So when they left the camp, the Apaches came in to see if, hey, like, did they leave anything behind? They killed Jose. They saw that, hey, they buried him. So they dug him up, scalped him, shot him full of arrows, 7 arrows, and then left him out there. And then another group
Mm.
came through, found his body, and reburied him in his graves there.
Wow.
And the grave marker's still there. It's probably about 3 foot tall, like some kind of slate, and it's still engraved, Jose Murillo, killed
Mm.
says February 1855,
Mm.
killed by Indians, and he was a guide. So yeah, I go
Wow.
visit him every trip now for the
Mm.
last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, as well as go drink the water at Smith Springs.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's my tradition. And I have my Jose Rock.
He's with us.
He is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
always talk to him. He never talks back. I've even been there like at midnight, and nope, nothing so far. But yeah, it's tradition, and it really, both
Mhm.
those items connect me and get
Yeah.
me ready for the Guad. So
Yeah. And I love that how you found out about it was through a community member who became your dear friend and really just goes to show like how welcoming the people are here and how information gets passed and you're passing that on to other people. So I love that and yeah, rest in peace, Jose and Mr. Espinosa.
absolutely. And if you're listening to this, go visit Mom's Kitchen Express in Van Horn, whether you're just driving through or whether you're going to the Guads. They'll serve you either way. And tell them you heard it at the Trailblazing Texas podcast.
Woo! Friend of the pod.
That's right. So now I think really this could be the most important section of the podcast. The history, yes, the trails, the views, to me absolutely is important, but this is safety, and this can save a life because there are
Mm.
fatalities at the park. So,
Mm.
this is, to the listeners, really pay attention to this next section, and we will do our best to get you ready for everything that the Guads can happen at the Guads. So, in your opinion, what are the most top-rated injuries or rescues that you have to respond to currently?
Yeah, it all depends on what time of year it is. It all depends on that. We're going to touch upon the most brutal and unforgiving season in the Guadalupes, which is between June and September, the summer. Dehydration is the biggest number one call we get in the summer. We probably get one a week, and if not, one a day. Dehydration, absolutely. People are underestimating the amount of water they need to bring on the peak, period. I see it every single day. So the number one injury in the summer is going to be a general heat-related illness, whether it's simple dehydration or goes up to hyponatremia, hypernatremia. But if you are doing the peak in the summer, you need to bring a gallon of water. And a gallon of water is 4 liters, which is about 4 of these guys. And each person in your group needs to have one. I tell people you need to watch your water when you're hiking. When you are halfway done with your water, you need to turn around because you need that to drink on the way down. So I think obviously that one was a given. We know about the dehydration in the summer. But the other one, most common rescue that we're responding to are going to be lower extremity injuries, whether that is a sprained ankle, broken ankle, dislocated knee. I've seen it all, broken leg, and all of them, most of them are happening on the way back down to your car, back after you've gotten to the halfway point of the hike. It's not anyone's fault, really. Obviously, just being careful, knowing when you're stepping, take sure steps. But you have to do a check of yourself when you get to the top or where you get halfway to the hike. You're not done until you're back at your car. Your safety is your responsibility. Not bringing enough water is not an option. And being very sure-footed and slow on the way down is imperative. Yeah, so the lower extremity injuries are really, really insane out here. And then touching on the deaths that we've had in the park, the majority of them I've seen have been heart attacks, cardiac arrests, and that all has to do with people pushing themselves too hard. So yes, there is a point where, you are huffing, you're puffing, you're like, I can do this, but it is important to check yourself, check your ego, stop, take a break. It might save your life for sure. So it can range from you just need more water to you're having a cardiac moment on the trail.
So for me, I see and have experienced a lot of people fixing to start a hike. And the only time I ever say anything is when they're in the quads.
Mm.
First off, because I know what they're about to encounter. And secondly, because of your, I don't want to say stupidity, but because your lack of knowledge or whatever, you are now endangering my favorite ranger in the world because they're going to have to come rescue you. So I don't want to say it ever came to like we're about to fight, but that's the that's the only time is I'll ever say something to somebody, and it's at the quads, and they have flip flops or Crocs,
Mm.
or they have it's hot, and yeah, like between 3 of them, they have a little 16-ounce bottle of water. And one lady, I was with my sister, and it was a wonderful hike. I took her up to the peak. It was warm, like in the 80s. We went up through the clouds. It was freezing. I mean, it
Uh-oh.
was so cold. We were wet.
Wow.
And that's when I discovered how the plants get all the water, is those clouds come up in that area, and water's just it's collecting and it's just pouring down. And then when we got back down, it was 90 something degrees when we got
Oh
below the
my
clouds.
gosh.
Oh, it was crazy.
Whoa.
And there were I don't remember where they were from, but the girl was not even through the hard part, where you kinda round and start heading south and the winds kinda hit.
Mm-hmm.
We were not there. We were like, we passed that part, but they
Mm-hmm.
hadn't got to that part where it kinda calms down a little bit. And the lady was crying, and the guy was like, yeah, it sounded like yelling. I don't know what he was saying, but it sounded like he was yelling. She was embarrassed.
Mm.
And, so, I just walked up and said, "Look, you know, what's going on?" He goes, "Oh, she doesn't wanna come up and blah, blah, blah." I said, "First off, you don't have the right shoes. You're in whatever you're in. Secondly, you have I see visually 1 bottle of water. Is that all you have?" "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I'm like, "It's 90 something degrees." I said, "You are endangering your lives." And I looked at that girl. I said, "Look, if you don't wanna do this hike, let him go and kill himself, whatever. You come with us. My sister and I will wait at the car. You can sit in the air conditioner until this ding dong gets done." And she was like, "No, no, no." And she went. So I don't know what happened. We left, but yeah, that was probably the biggest argument I got with someone was,
Yeah.
heading down, they were heading up and, seeing someone crying.
Yeah.
And,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, but like people don't realize it's not, yeah, yeah, okay, if you want to endanger your own life, man,
Yeah.
have at it.
That's
But
on
now
you.
you're endangering the Rangers' lives.
Yeah.
All the people that it takes to coordinate your rescue, rope teams, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's only at the Guads I'm ready to yeah.
He's swinging.
Yep. And
That's
then also I think it's important if you could talk a little bit about the park's remoteness. There's not a hospital right down the street.
no.
You're having to call in helicopters and, like, all this kind of stuff, so talk a little bit about that, like, just because you break your leg or you don't have enough water, you're not immediately gonna be rescued. It's hours, it's
Mm,
18 hours, it's 12
mm,
hours, it's whatever, so
mm.
talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. This morning, actually, I was looking at a sign that we have displayed in the visitor center talking about rescues, and it says rescues can be between 6 to 72 hours long. That is the estimate we give to people. But absolutely nail on the head. And everybody realizes it when they're driving out here, but they may not always remember it when they need help. We are about an hour away from a hospital with limited capabilities, and we are 2+ hours away from fully functioning hospitals. Sometimes we have rescue rangers on site, and typically we try to say, hey, if you get a call for a rescue, have a bag already packed, hopefully maybe less than 30 minutes to get all settled and headed out on trail. But most of the time, there are no SAR Rangers on site. Rescue crews are at a minimum. The crews we do call come from another state, New Mexico, an hour away. And that's just the drive, not including the prep time to get the gear together, to get the trucks loaded, to get the ropes. You mentioned this earlier, helicopters. Our helicopter comes out of Alpine, which is down near Big Bend, and they will not fly in winds that are over 30 knots. And we're in the second windiest place in the country. So a lot of people assume when they, call 911 that these magical fairies are going to appear to come rescue them. And that is absolutely not the case. We're not always available. And it's, like you said, hours before someone is even setting foot on trail to get to you, which is hours away. So it's a really sobering fact. It's part of the allure of the park is the remoteness, but it's also part of the challenges out here. So rescues here are really involved. We need a lot of resources, and we just really need visitors to be making smart decisions initially because it does risk our lives. We've had rangers get injured here. I've seen a volunteer, someone not even getting paid, get life flighted out because they were on a rescue that they maybe shouldn't have been on. So yeah, it really is a really big push that people need to be safe because it is endangering our lives here, and we will not go out if it's dangerous to us. But of
No.
course, we are here to serve the public. We are happy to help, but we're not always able to with just what we have going on. So
Yeah, I mean, Pam ripped open her leg on that El Cap rescue.
that's the
What
one.
were y'all saying? Because Guadalupe's the biggest reef and the shark got her or something?
Yes, yes, yes. She got like 35 stitches in
Mhm.
her leg.
Yep.
Yeah, that one hurt because she's a friend. But yeah, just be safe, people.
No, and she's an expert at rescue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not too many better.
No, best in the biz. Pam
Yep.
Bales.
And, okay, I have something I'm gonna come clean on. So I've been to the park 25 times. Only once did I ever utter the words, "Oh, Leah's gonna be pissed about this. We're gonna have to
No
call for a
way.
rescue."
I didn't know this.
Yeah, it was on, Freeholey Ridge, and we were looking like, "Oh, okay, we're bailing because of the wind." It just got to be t we almost got to the very end too. We were, like, maybe half a mile, and I was like we're like, "Alright, yeah, we're gonna have to bail." So we're looking around, and, it wasn't too friendly looking, and I'm thinking, "If we have to call for a rescue, Leah's gonna be so pissed at us."
I'll make fun of you later after I rescue.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But yeah, we made it. It wasn't too bad.
Good, yeah.
I know you mentioned it a couple of times, and even in part 1, we kinda talked about it, but I think it's so important. Let's really, like, highlight this. What is your advice for managing water on long hikes in the park?
It comes down to one thing: how much can you lug up? So we recommend at the park for hiking in any season, obviously, especially summer, you will need a gallon of water per person per day. And a gallon is about 8 pounds, which is quite heavy. And if you're doing a backpacking trip, overnight, one night, you will need 2 gallons, which is 16 pounds because of that rule. There are 0 water sources. There are no natural springs up in the backcountry. Don't even pack your filtration system, your bleach tablets, whatever. Don't even bring them. The 2 choices are lugging up enough to survive. And the kind of silver lining on that is as you're hiking, you're drinking, your pack is lightening, so you do lose that 16 pounds at the end of your hike. And then the second option is making a very long detour down a few thousand feet to Dog Canyon, which does have water as well. But like I said earlier, not bringing enough water is not an option. I know it's heavy, but yeah, it is a very sinking feeling when you have your little Camelback and you take your last sip. And that's also the tricky part with Camelbacks too, or any sort of water bladder, is that you are not seeing how much water
Thank
that you
you.
left. Yeah, so I like to have bottles, and I see, and I'm gauging how much water I will need. Camelbacks are great, makes you hands free, but you really need to be monitoring how much water that you have. It is life or death.
But also, like, if I'm with you hiking, I wanna see your water. I wanna see your bottles because a lot of
Yes.
times I limit my water intake if I see that you're struggling or you're not, or I'll say, "Hey, you haven't drank in a while, you still have 3 liters left, like, you need to start drinking." And a water bladder, to me, they're the most dangerous
Yeah.
for this type of hiking. And
Yeah.
if you're a new hiker, you will not hike with me with a water bladder. If you're like Henning, it's and Cameron and Todd and Joe, like, if you have the experience and it's not your only water source, I have no issues because
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
you've lived it. But anybody else, I'm like, "Nah." You either get some Trekker Joe's water bottle sleeve and let's do this, or you can go on your own or stay at home or whatever.
I love that. You just taught me something, Jason, like for your hiking buddies, monitoring how much they're doing. Yeah, that's really,
Yeah.
I never thought of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then let's say you're in a place that your bladder pops. Let's say we're at Smith Springs.
Hmm.
Now what are you gonna do?
Right. Yeah.
And it's funny, I said that and somebody's like, "Oh, that never happens." Ryan, I don't remember what episode he's on. He's out of Arizona. We talked about hiking in Arizona. He was heading to a funeral and he goes, "Jason, I went to the Guads. It was rainy. It was amazing experience." He goes, "But guess what started leaking when I got to the top of the Guads? His bladder."
Oh my gosh.
But, thank
That's,
goodness he started early. It was overcast. It was rainy. And, yeah, they are a death trap. The only
yes.
2 times in my life where hiking, it was serious with, people in danger, the people that I were with is because they had bladders, and nope,
Oh,
nope,
wow.
nope, nope,
Wow. Okay.
yep, yep.
Wow.
So, yeah, I have 8 or 9 Trader Joe's water bottle sleeves. I have a ton of smart water bottles that I reuse, or if I find them on trail, I just bring them, wash them, and reuse them. So, yep,
I love that. Yeah, that's a good point.
yep, yep, yep. All right, I and I was only basing it on my experience and me. Like, I don't really feel a lot of altitude in the quads. You're 8,000 feet, and it to me feels kind of normal. But man, I was doing research. It can start impacting you about 5,000 feet.
Mhm.
So how do you like? What is your experience with people underestimating the altitude there, and kind of that impacting them?
Yeah, absolutely. Altitude sickness, which we call in the medical field as AMS, acute mountain sickness, typically begins at about 8,000 feet. But like you said, for people that aren't super used to being above sea level too much, you can start feeling the creepiness of those symptoms come in about 5,000 feet. And it most commonly happens when people are traveling quickly to these elevations, just road tripping right out there. So I usually suggest to people give yourself a few days to acclimate. And again, like I said earlier, our elevation right here where I'm sitting, I'm higher than Denver, Colorado. So you're already starting out a lot higher than you expected. And most people are hiking to the peak, 8,000. So, yeah, most hikers are not experiencing true altitude sickness here, but those symptoms, the headache, the nausea, the dizziness, they do occur here. Sometimes because of dehydration, but a lot of times because of the elevation. And what I learned about AMS that blew my mind, but also makes sense, is that physical fitness has nothing to do with it. You can be in the best shape of your life, peak physical, you could be an Olympian, and you can still develop AMS here. So if you do see those symptoms appearing, stop ascending. And if they are worsening, you must descend immediately. So I used to work on a 14er in Colorado, and all the time we were getting visitors fainting, dizzy, throwing up, puking. We don't see that too much here, but definitely those symptoms can creep in a lot without you noticing. So being able to recognize those signs and mitigating it is the most important. But yeah.
The biggest thing that I noticed about the quads, and it's directly related to the altitude. I don't care if it's 19 degrees or 30 degrees or whatever. If the sun is out, it's cooking you.
Mm,
The
mhm.
sun is cooking you because a lot of times there's no shade. So sun hoodie, no water bladder, sun hoodie, sun hoodie. So what about wildlife safety in the backcountry areas? What should people do if they are lucky enough to come across a mountain lion or a bear?
Yeah. So the first thing to do would be to prevent an interaction as best as you can. And the number one way to do that is securing your food. So making sure your food is inaccessible to the animals. That's your responsibility. Some hikers bring their own bear boxes, but I have always just put my food in a little sack, paracord rope up on a branch,
Yeah.
and I'm fine. So the number one thing to do is just to prevent an encounter of the animal kind as much as possible. We always bring up our skunks with their little hands, opening the zippers and everything. But if you do run into a larger animal on the trail, it is really important to know what to do and what not to do. And I'm going to touch upon the biggest predators we have in the park, which are the bears and the mountain lions. There are some slight differences, but for general, you will never turn your back to a predator. You will never turn your back, you will never run, and don't break eye contact with it. So that's the big thing. Acting big, puffing out your jacket, throwing rocks if you need to, screaming, hey bear, hey lion, but absolutely not backing down. But yeah, you hear a lot of, the Hollywood things like, oh, play dead, blah, blah, blah. Out here, you act big, you let that predator know that you are a predator too. Um, When I hike solo in the Guads, I probably look crazy. I'm making as much noise as I can. I hike with my hiking poles swung around. I say, I'm not tasty, but knowing what to do when that happens is really important. But what I think is interesting, we have never, ever in the history of the park had an encounter of that kind with a lion or a bear where it got to that point. But certainly it could happen. But yeah, just knowing what to do, acting big, and not triggering their predator instinct is good.
Okay. So again, no Mountain House mac and cheese behind the ears.
Yeah. I love that.
Or you can just try to plan your hike, especially in the backcountry, where you can outrun the person you're with.
There you go. Pick a slower
Yeah.
hiking buddy.
There you go. There you go. So if you look at just kind of normal gear that you would take on, let's just talk day hiking. Is there anything that you think is kind of maybe out of the ordinary from like a normal, like what I would take at the Lone Star Hiking Trail versus what I would need in the Guads?
Yeah. I think the big thing that really surprises people and quite frankly other rangers is even if you're planning to do Smith Springs or whatever day hike, you will need enough in your pack to survive for 24 hours. So doubling everything. Obviously, we're always going to go back to the skeleton of how you should begin packing for your day hike, which is the 10 essentials. Number one being navigation, knowing where you're going. And that can even level up to having a personal locator beacon, a Garmin InReach of sorts. So navigation, personal locator beacon. Headlamp, I always carry that. Even if I'm doing something small, I don't know if something's going to happen. So having a headlamp with extra batteries. Sun protection, sunglasses, sunscreen, head, everything. You'll notice that there we go, Jason. The smart desert hikers look like Jason when you're hiking. They're completely covered, even in the heat of the summer. They don't have a lot of skin showing. So sun protection's huge out here. First aid kit, of course. A knife, never know. A fire, obviously we are permanent burn ban here at Guadalupe, but if it came to life or death, having a fire is good. Shelter, I do not hike without a bivvy or an emergency blanket, anything like that. And then the last 3 of the 10 essentials are extra. Extra food, extra water, extra clothes. And then out here at Guadalupe, we've coined the 11 essentials, which includes your toilet bag because you have to pack out human waste here. So yeah, it obviously can lead to a heavy pack, but it will save your life. When I did the peak the other day, I carried almost 2 gallons. So a gallon for myself, and I'm a rescue ranger, and a gallon for other people that might need it. So it's really important. And then having, again, that ego to know when it's time to turn around, that bailout point, a timer on your phone, whatever it may be. But yeah, there's a layer of humbleness to it, but packing extra to survive, plan for an overnight, even if you're not overnighting. It seems really crazy, but your future self might thank you.
Yeah. And also, let me grab this real quick. I started taking usually day hikes there. I didn't really do, but in our part 1, I started taking a headlamp. So, like I started because of you and the extra batteries that, I kind of are, when I had a headlamp, I'd always take them, but I got this survival blanket. It's like you get inside of it.
Those are good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started taking that. Yeah. I told Henning it only fits 1, so he has to get 1. So yeah, I mean, haven't had to use that yet. And then also a splint kit I started taking when I'm on the Guads. Yeah. So I still need to be rescued, but at least I'll be wrapped up.
There you go. Yep. Preventing the death.
Yep.
That's awesome.
There you go. Yeah. So I for the last, I think 2 Guad trips, I started bringing that, as well as the last one. No matter what I do, I always have the headlamp and the battery. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. What is one mistake you wish hikers would stop making?
Stay in your groups, please. Your
You
hiking
must have
buddy is
been
very
listening.
important.
You must have been listening to Sam and Henning and I's podcast episodes.
Yes.
Even my wife is like, "Would you guys stay together?" Like she yells like at all of us, like, "Stay together because we
Yeah.
separate."
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's okay if like someone's pace is quicker than the others, but generally what we say is the slowest person hike in front. So
Yeah.
everyone's sticking together, setting the pace. I can't tell you the amount of parents and children I have seen separated. That the
I
parents are going to continue hiking. They just send their kid down the trail. Kid gets lost. Most of the lost hiker reports I have taken are because of split parties or parties that are not communicating the plan to each other. Or they're assuming. I've seen, children left behind, elderly parents left behind. Um, Another mistake are the social trails. Oh, I don't want to do all these switchbacks. I'm just going to cut down this canyon. Please don't do that. You're, first of all, damaging the resource that we're trying to protect by having the trail. But you're also, it is a recipe for getting lost. Having someone either at home or at the trailhead knowing when you're expected to be out and knowing when it is time to initiate a rescue is really important. I call it the uh-oh time. So every time someone's checking in for a day hike or backpacking, I ask, hey, who's your loved one that's just checking on you to making sure? That's a good one. And then the last one I would say are those, I won't call any out, but some of those hiking apps that are community sourced. So a trail runner can go in and put, oh yeah, Guad Peak's 2 hours. And then an average hiker seeing that and planning their trip based off of the 2 hour thing. So doing a lot of research is important, not always trusting the community sourced apps. Always talking to a ranger, listening to the Trailblazing Texas podcast is good information. But yeah, that's the big thing too, are some of these apps where people are putting in estimations that are not quite accurate. So sticking in your group, don't take shortcuts, let someone know your uh-oh time, and doing a lot of research on the trail you're doing are the
Yeah.
big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom almost called you guys, on our quad. We he's like, her and Lori are talking, then my friend John in Washington, like, he'd say, "No, they shouldn't be done," "These planned it all out. They should, give them another 30 minutes to an hour, and they should be done." It's like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. We left at 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And, yeah, and at that time, Pine Springs didn't have a really good phone cell service. I mean,
Yeah.
it was good, but it was more patchy at times than what now. I always have the signal,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I just happened to send a text off right before they were gonna kick off a
Well, but good. Good you had
yeah,
someone
yeah,
looking out for you, right? Yeah, that's
yeah.
good.
And when
Yeah.
I got home, I had a Garmin InReach.
The best present.
That's right. So I love this question, and I know from you, you want everyone to have the best experience in the quads, no matter what that is, whether it's just uh, in Pine Springs parking lot and you just s- stay there and look at the mountains, or Smith Springs, or backcountry, or whatever you're wanting to do. You're always very supportive. But how do you, and to me, I think there's a fine line with how you educate visitors to the real risks, because that's a conversation that needs to be had,
Mhm.
but also kind of like not scaring them away.
Mm,
Like how do you
mhm.
handle that?
Yeah. I think a good example of that is one time this guy came up to me, hey, I'm going to do Guadalupe Peak. Great. So I told him the facts of the trail: 3,000 feet climb, 8 miles, 6 to 8 hours round trip. And he told me, wow, you're negative. And I told him, I'm like, none of those are my opinions. Those are facts. Um, so, giving people the reality is really important, but also empowering them and encouraging them to do it, but also touching upon that humbleness to be able to turn around whenever, I think is really important. I hear it all the time. Oh, I bit off more than I can chew. And that's, good to have those experiences, to know where your boundaries are, your levels are, knowing, when it's okay to push them or when to step back. Um, but I think a big thing people don't realize is that rangers are not allowed to tell people no. So if someone comes up to me and they have no water, they're wearing Crocs, they have not the right gear, I cannot tell them, you cannot do Guadalupe Peak.
Are you kidding?
I tell everyone the same. Yep. I tell everyone the same thing. I treat everybody equally as best I can. We're a bit firmer with some people than others, but I cannot tell people no. If someone comes up to me with a crazy backcountry itinerary, I can modify it for them if they want, but I legally cannot tell people no, which is crazy. So I think, yeah, just leave your ego at home. Bring, have plan Bs available. Be flexible, be patient. Things can change. But I always love to tell people that are maybe nervous to do Guadalupe Peak for the first time. I give them everything. They have everything they need. And I tell them, you got this. You can do that. I'm a little city kid from Houston. If I was always put down or told that maybe I can't do it, I may not have been the outdoor professional I am today. So there's a really fine line between being negative, giving people reality checks, but encouraging them, because they might fall in love with this place like you and I did, and it would just need a little encouragement from a ranger or fellow hiker to do it. But the big thing is, leave your ego at home, and your experience is your responsibility for sure.
Yeah. And so you can't say no, but can you say that's dumb?
Politely, yes. Yeah, like,
I don't.
I recommend this. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we
Nice.
can't tell
Nice.
people no. Yeah.
All right. I'm heading back from El Cap and I broke my ankle. What's the most important thing that I could do at that moment?
I would say sit down and find some shelter and call 911. The big thing out here, yeah, for accidents, whether it's close to the trailhead, far away from the trailhead, the big thing is, coming from a rescue ranger's perspective, is self-rescue as much as you can, but do not hurt yourself more than you already are.
Mhm.
Find a safe place. Hopefully you're near a trail, but sit down, find a tree, find shelter. Call 911, even with no service. We will be able to ping your location, but we do not want people wasting their energy or wasting their water, wandering around trying to find help. The big thing is just making things as easy as possible for rescuers. I've seen all types of people. It all kind of comes from that strength within. We had a rescue on the peak, and it was a broken ankle. And homie had made it about a mile down from when he called, and he was crab walking down the trail with his foot in the air. We told him to stop, get on the litter, we'll get it from here. So I really appreciated that gumption. And then on the other side, we find people that probably can walk, but maybe don't want to, or they're embarrassed, they're tired. So sometimes we do have to push people a little bit to self-rescue. And then we have people that are like, oh, slow down, you're doing too much. But yeah, just making things as easier as possible for the rescues. But you're already hurt. You're probably stressed. That's going to take a lot of energy out of you. Just sit down, find shelter, let someone know where you are. And the big thing is, when you let someone know where you are, don't move after that. That
Yeah.
happens a lot too. We get to the location, they're not there. They thought they could keep going. They got more hurt. So just sit down, look good. We'll be there soon.
All right. So now, as we kind of start to wrap up, these are some kind of like, I guess, soul kind of emotional closeout personal questions. So when you're out on the trail in the park, what are some of your thoughts that usually come to you?
To be very honest, the first one is, I hope I'm not the first mountain lion attack in the park. But, all jokes aside, I honestly, this might sound weird, I try to think about my problems on trail.
Mhm.
And when I think about my problems, they seem so small and so distant because the only thing that matters is my feet on that soil, my pack on my back, the clear air in my lungs, and me moving forward. And just that rhythmic stepping and your mind begins to clear. And then I realized I left my problems at the trailhead. So it really is a sense of place and heart being on trail and being able to leave your problems behind, because that's not always possible when you're not on trail. But in that moment, whether you're in the Guads or any other place, in that moment, nothing matters. And there is a place in the world where your problems don't exist, and it's on trail and it's outside and it's with Mother Earth. So yeah, I try to think about my problems because it really puts into perspective that how small they are and how meaningful this life is. So yeah, that's what I think about are my problems. And I realize they're
Nice.
not that important.
All right, this is the second dumb question that I'm going to ask you because we already know the answer to it. Is do you think this place changes people? And if so, how?
Can you show your tattoo one more time?
Oh,
She does it without you even knowing. I've said this before. I moved out here for only expecting to be here for 6 months, and it's been 10 years. Guadalupe tests you, takes from you, requires a blood sacrifice once in a while, but the absolute reward that you get from her makes everything else dissipate. This is my home. I am forever connected to this place. I want to be here forever. We have a term in the Park Service called like your dream park. And a lot of rangers usually want to like end up there and end their career. I have been so fortunate to find it at the beginning. And I love being the Guad girl. And I love every single morning driving and looking at those mountains. And it is a sense of home and place. And it changes you in the hardest way, but it is the best way. And I don't think any other mountain range can change and touch people's hearts like Guadalupe can at all. Yeah, I always have her in my heart and in my soul, and I think about her all the time.
nice. So, what do you hope someone feels the first time they look out from Guadalupe Peak and like they've reached the peak, they've accomplished this. It's their first time in the park, and they're just kind of looking out. What do you hope that feeling's like for them?
I hope people feel proud of themselves. It took a lot for them to get out there. I hope people feel so grateful for their bodies and how our body is this vessel for our soul and fueled you up the mountain. Every time I hike, I'm like, thank you, legs. Thank you, arms. Thank you, heart. Thank you, head. So I really feel, I hope people feel this absolute gratitude and gratefulness for this body that we've been given. I hope you know that you are standing on the summit with other legends. Everyone that has hiked Guadalupe, you are a legend. If you've touched that monolith at the top, or if you even set foot on the trail, didn't make it to the top, you are a legend. And I also love Guadalupe Peak because it's the tallest point in Texas, and you are touching the sky, and you're saying hi to all of your loved ones that have passed, and they are smiling at you, and you're almost so close that you can touch them. So I really hope that you feel that accomplishment of making it to the top, and you feel the love of everyone that has ever been in your life. And most importantly, how beautiful this great state of Texas is, and that we have these beautiful bodies and hearts that are able to carry us up that mountain. But yeah, anyone that has ever set foot on Guad Peak or any trail in the Guads, we are proud of you and we love you. And the mountains love you too.
Awesome. So, how do you personally stay grounded and connected to the park?
I try to do it every morning on my way into work. So I live in Carlsbad, and I get an hour commute looking at Mama Guadalupe the entire time. And on my commute, I really try to think of things that I'm grateful for, think of how I can improve myself and be the best ranger and person that I can be. And just taking the time to appreciate the small things and always being curious and having that childlike wonder is really important. I spent an hour looking at lichen the other day on a tree, just really taking the time to stop and saying thank you. But yeah, every morning as the sun's rising, I see Guadalupe. I try to take that hour. And then, of course, when you're on trail, just sitting and hearing how quiet it is and not ever wanting to leave that place. And you can do that whether you're in the mountains or not, just being grateful, being grounded, sitting in your backyard, looking out a window. You find home when you're outside, for sure.
Do you ever, when someone on one of the Facebook pages or Instagram or something, and someone mentions, I met Ranger Leah, and then the flood of comments of how you have impacted their lives, does that, I mean, I don't know what the right words are. Is it pretty overwhelming to know that you've played such an important part in different aspects of so many people's lives, whether pushing them to reach their goals or like you were talking about, telling them before they leave, you got this, you can do this. And then they accomplish this kind of stuff. And then to read, oh yeah, she helped me here, she did this, oh, she's the best ranger in the world. Like, do you ever just like kind of just take it in, or yeah, I don't know what the the right words are.
Um, oh, Jason. That is why I wear this uniform and do what I do. And I also want to put out there the beauty and light you see in other people is what you have in yourself. So if you saw kindness or passion in me, you have that in yourself too. So I do want to touch upon that if you are receiving these beautiful things from the people you meet and the places you are, it's because you have that beauty in you too. Obviously, I think the kids is the best part when they it clicks for them and they're asking questions and they're engaged. I see little Leah there. So obviously the kids in the next generation are really important, but you have no idea how much those comments mean to me. And it's hard sometimes working for the Park Service, and it's a job and there's stresses of the job, but and you are always so kind, Jason. You always send those to me, or we talked about you on this, and it makes me smile for weeks. My parents are over the moon when they read the comments. They're on all the Facebook pages, but sometimes I get so bogged down, but it lifts me up so high and makes my heart beat so fast. And I can never thank you and everybody else enough for all the kind words. But it comes because you have that in you too, and you see it in yourself as well. I did want to tell this little story. So I think we all remember the shooting in the Uvalde school a few years ago. And they did an article about one of the teachers who risked her life for her students. And the picture they put up of this teacher that encompassed her was her on Guadalupe Peak. And that struck all of us that worked here, that this woman who did this really amazing thing for her students, they encapsulated her life by her summit on Guadalupe Peak. And that really touched me because I thought, what if I talked to her? So that really just goes to the power of this place. And it tattoos your heart when you come here and you let that experience happen. Not a lot of people open their hearts and open their eyes. They see a crusty, remote park, desert, but truly it encompasses your soul. And I really was so touched by that tribute to that Uvalde teacher, her life was summed up in one picture of her on Guadalupe Peak, proudly waving the Texas flag. So yeah, so this place does something to people, and it's not anything that we can explain with words on this podcast. It's something you feel or you don't. And I'm so proud to have worked here and to have met you and other really amazing hikers. And y'all fuel me when I'm down. You have no idea. So
Yeah, I get a giggle to see all the comments that you get when you just mention your name and a ranger and the positive that influences that you've had on people. And like, can you imagine if everybody cared as much about something as you do to impact as many people as you have? Like, how wonderful this world would be, you know? Yeah.
that's really sweet.
All right, last couple of questions. If you had to write a short little message for future rangers that would read, they would read, I don't know, 20 years from now, what would it say?
Dear Rangers of Guadalupe, I hope the park is still thriving and surviving. I hope visitation is still low and you still have the trails to yourself. I hope you have a fancy new visitor center. I hope there is no gondola or zip line to the top of Guadalupe Peak.
Over my dead body, will that happen?
We're tying ourselves to a tree.
That's right.
I hope the Apache people still come here and connect with the mountains and hold ceremonies. I hope the monsoon seasons are strong and all the flowers bloom, including our Guadalupe violet. I hope we're still discovering species and protecting this precious place. I hope the park is fully staffed, fully funded. I hope rangers and visitors alike continue to fall in love. I hope my mountains are still standing strong and tall. And I hope that Guadalupe will forever be a beacon, reminding us what really matters. And I think with the community and the army that Guadalupe has behind her, I think all of that will happen. But yeah.
Nice. All right, last two questions. So, what do you want or hope people carry with them after they leave the park?
Yeah. The big thing is whether or not you like hiking, whether or not you like the desert, whether or not you like wilderness, whether or not you even come here or not, this place deserves protecting. Whether you're an outdoors person or not, Guadalupe Mountains deserves fierce love, protection, and loyalty. And the time is now to be doing that, to be raising this passion, raising this awareness, letting people know how special this place is. So whether or not you set foot on trail, where you set foot in the park, we need to be standing up for these places and loving her and protecting her as fiercely as you would your own blood, because she is your own blood. And it's the most important fight in the world. This place has been sacred to thousands of people for thousands of years, and it will continue to do so. And yeah, so that's what I want people to take away, is whether or not you do feel that click, that connection, that spark, that doesn't matter. We need to stand up and speak up for her. And yeah, hopefully you'll have an imprint of El Capitan on your heart like me and Jason have too.
Or forearm. All right. So, last question. I've already asked you this question. It was during the lightning round, but I think it's fitting that I ask it again. Tomorrow's your last day at the park. You're retiring. You've fulfilled, like you were at the park the whole time. It's now time to retire, and tomorrow's your last day that you're going to be walking through the visitor center on your way out to your car and driving away.
Ugh.
What is the message that you would leave behind to the Guads right before you head out?
I hope I made you proud. I hope I did you good, and I hope that you're proud of me. And hopefully in the next life, I can come back as a Guadalupe violet or be a songbird on the summit. But I really hope I left this place better than I found it. And I hope I made that passion as contagious as I could for everybody else. But that's the point, is leaving it better, and your legacy, the legacy you leave behind. Yeah, so hopefully Guadalupe is proud of me.
She is. Well, that is it. I can tell you that, we've been talking about doing this for over a year, and it finally got the approvals. It happened, and it was everything that I hoped it would have been. I was worried that I'm going to screw this one up, but yeah, it was everything that I hoped it was. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on the podcast. And if you're dead serious about coming back on and talking about Point, let's do it.
It would be an honor.
Yeah,
It would be
absolutely.
an honor.
So we will discuss that right after we depart this. But yeah, I mean, I always say it, I always feel like I can't put it in words how thankful I am for you to come on the podcast, and especially share our love of the Guads to the listeners, as well as, being able to make it. The 100th episode was really important to me. And, yeah, it's been a ride.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. This is the best podcast in all the West. I wouldn't go on any other podcast. We love the Trailblazing Texas podcast. I am so grateful that Guadalupe brought us together, and I'm not alone on my love for the park, that I have an army of people behind you, and I have a blast every time I sit down and talk with you. You make me laugh. You're so funny. But it truly is the love of the place that you're my favorite. So thank you so much, Jason. You are the best ever, ever, ever.
Well, thank you for the kind words. Well, I will definitely be reaching out to you for the other episode, and you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Bye, Jason.
And that wraps up another exciting episode of the Trailblazing Texas podcast. We hope you enjoyed the episode today, and stay tuned for our next episode, where we will pick back up where we left off and guarantee to uncover many more hiking gems and share many more tips to enhance your experience on the trail. Until then, happy trails and happy hiking.